Carl Jung once said that the most devastating weapon against a narcissist isn't rage or revenge. It's an empath who finally says, "Enough." What happened next shocked even Jung himself. According to Carl Jung, the renowned psychoanalyst who pioneered analytical psychology, there's a psychological battle happening that most people don't recognize, but many experience. It's the dance between narcissists and empaths. Jung discovered something fascinating. Narcissists don't fear people who fight back with anger. They fear those who wake up to the truth. What terrifies a narcissist more than confrontation? Jung found it, a psychological shift that happens in the empath's mind, making the narcissist's entire playbook completely useless. Jung noticed that empaths have an extraordinary ability to feel what others can't even put into words. They pick up on emotional frequencies that go beyond regular conversation. This heightened sensitivity doesn't just make them kind, it makes them perfect targets for people who use emotions as weapons to stay in control. The meeting of two personalities, Jung wrote, is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what happens when that chemical reaction becomes toxic, when one person seeks to consume rather than connect? Jung identified the exact moment when a narcissist realizes they've lost control. And it's not when you think. The narcissist senses it even before the empath fully understands what's happening. At first, Jung observed, the narcissist and empath seem perfectly matched. The narcissist desperately wants admiration and validation. The empath lives to understand and heal others. But this apparent perfect match hides a serious imbalance. The narcissist, Jung recognized, doesn't offer real connection. Instead, they put on a carefully crafted performance, a mask designed to take rather than give. According to Jung, there's a devastating psychological trap that keeps empaths stuck in narcissistic relationships for years. Breaking free means confronting the most painful truth about yourself. What keeps the empath trapped isn't naivety, Jung explained. It's belief. Belief in redemption, in healing, in the power of understanding to transform someone. The empath stays because they're convinced there's something deeper they can reach in the narcissist. Jung's critical insight was realizing that, for the narcissist, the mask isn't hiding their true self. The mask is the person. Jung discovered that narcissists have one specific fear more powerful than rejection or abandonment. And when an empath triggers this fear, everything changes. The awakening begins with small inconsistencies, tiny cracks in the perfect facade, a pointless lie here, missing empathy when it's needed most. Jung observed that these moments pile up like psychological evidence, eventually forcing the empath to question everything they believed about the relationship. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung wrote, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. For the empath, awakening means facing the painful reality that what they thought was love was actually control. That realization isn't just uncomfortable, it's psychologically earth-shattering. Jung identified a psychological transformation that happens in 3 distinct phases. The third phase is what makes empaths truly dangerous to narcissists, because it cannot be manipulated. The first transformation Jung identified was emotional detachment. Not indifference, but a deep psychological restructuring, where the empath stops participating in the narcissist's version of reality. This isn't just about ending a relationship. It's about breaking free from learned patterns of self-sacrifice and emotional overinvestment. Jung recognized that narcissists don't just manipulate emotions, they shape identity. They create environments where the empath's worth is constantly questioned, measured against how well they meet the narcissist's ever-changing needs. Breaking this cycle requires the empath to face their deepest fears about themselves. What Jung called shadow work reveals why empaths struggle to leave narcissists, and it has nothing to do with love. It's about confronting the darkest truth about yourself. What you resist, Jung taught, persists. The empath must face what they've been avoiding, that their identity has become tangled up with caretaking, fixing, and forgiving. The narcissist exploits this repeatedly because it works. But Jung saw that real liberation begins when the empath starts questioning internally. Why am I apologizing for their behavior? Why do I feel guilty for wanting space? Jung discovered that silence becomes a psychological weapon when used by an awakened empath. It's not what they say that terrifies the narcissist. It's what they stop saying. The second transformation is the power of non-reaction. Jung observed that narcissists need emotional responses to function. They need someone to manipulate, provoke, and control, because that's how they manage their broken sense of self. When an empath refuses to engage, not out of spite, but out of clarity, the narcissist faces psychological chaos. This silence, Jung noted, isn't passive withdrawal. It's active rebellion. It communicates something devastating. You no longer have access to me. The narcissist, sensing this shift, typically escalates with guilt, charm, threats, or fake vulnerability. But if the empath holds firm, they discover something profound. Closure doesn't come from the narcissist. It comes from no longer needing anything from them. According to Jung, there's a specific moment when narcissists realize they've truly lost control, and it triggers their greatest fear. This happens when the empath does something the narcissist never expected. The third and most powerful transformation Jung identified was when the empath finds their authentic voice. Not the reactive voice that once scrambled to explain or defend, but an integrated voice speaking from clarity rather than fear. This voice names things as they are, without seeking permission or validation. Jung understood the mythic power of naming. To name something is to define it, to place it within a clear framework of meaning. When an empath says, "This was manipulation," or "This was not love," they're taking back authorship of their story. They're no longer living in the narrative written for them. Jung revealed that thriving after narcissistic abuse triggers something worse than rejection in the narcissist's mind. It proves something they've desperately tried to deny their entire lives. The final transformation Jung observed was thriving, not merely surviving the abuse, but growing because of it, becoming something whole and integrated. This terrifies the narcissist because it reveals their worst fear. They were never the source of the empath's light. They were merely blocking it. Narcissists crave significance above all else, to be the main character in someone else's story. But when the empath thrives, Jung noted, that framework collapses. The narcissist becomes irrelevant, which for someone with a fragile ego is psychological annihilation. Jung identified the final psychological boundary that, once established, makes an empath completely immune to narcissistic manipulation forever. The thriving empath embodies what Jung called individuation, becoming fully oneself. They establish boundaries not as walls built from anger, but as frameworks built from self-respect. These boundaries aren't just protective, they're transformative. They invite growth and authentic connection rather than resentment and exhaustion. The most terrifying thing, Jung observed, is to accept oneself completely. For the empath who has endured narcissistic abuse, this acceptance means recognizing their worth beyond what they give to others. It means understanding that saying no is not rejection, but preservation. that self-care is not selfishness, but a prerequisite for genuine empathy. In his final analysis, Jung revealed why empaths who've overcome narcissistic abuse develop an unusual psychological power that extends far beyond the relationship itself. This transformation changes everything. In the end, Jung recognized that the most dangerous person to a narcissist isn't someone who fights back with similar tactics. It's the empath who has reclaimed themselves completely, who has made the unconscious conscious, integrated their shadow, and now lives from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness. This empath doesn't need to prove anything. Their very existence becomes evidence that the narcissist's game doesn't work forever, that manipulation has its limits, and that freedom is possible. And that, according to Jung, is the ultimate victory. Not destruction of the other, but reconstruction of the self. Your boundaries, Jung might say, are not just limits. They are the architecture of your freedom. Build them wisely, maintain them fiercely, and watch as your life transforms from a battleground into a sanctuary. Thank you for staying with me throughout this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might benefit from it. Thanks for watching.